Hello, everybody, and welcome or welcome back to the second shelf and my second tag this year. It's amazing. This is the Great Author tag, which was created by Doris from All the Books, and she was inspired by Brian, a discussion about what makes an author great, and Brian was inspired by a video made by Kim from Middle of the Book Match about Jane Austen. That's how it goes on BookTube. Anyway, and I was tagged by someone, but I forgot. So if you tagged me, sorry and thank you. Anyway, there are all questions about, I think there are 10 questions. 10 questions about what makes an author great, or which author you think is great and why. So I loved the idea, and we will get right into. I have the questions here on my computer as always because I can't remember a thing. And the first one is a great author whose works you've read in their entirety. There are a couple of authors I used to when I was young. I used to really read, one author, all the books by that author. I'm not doing that often anymore, but there's one author, very recently I completed her entire body of work, and that is Louisa Edric. I did that as a project, Author Spotlight. If you follow my channel for some time, together with Chéri from Miss Chéri Reads. And we read the novels, the backlist novels in chronological publication order. And it was fabulous. And there are a couple of really famous ones that Edric wrote in, I think she wrote 18 or something up to now. But one of my favorites is one that is not talked about that often, and it is The Last Report on the Miracles at Little No Horse. It is set in your typical Edric community with, I'm just checking, the publication date, 2001. But yeah, it's about a priest who is maybe not entirely a white priest on a reservation. It's not entirely maybe the person you think that they are. It's about friendship, the friendship between the priest and an indigenous, very funny, wise man. And I just love the characters and the setting, and it's about miracles. It's also tackles, very important subjects like the treatment of indigenous people, especially children, how they were subjected to Catholic school and what that meant. So there are these themes that you are expecting when you're reading a Louisa Edric, but the whole story is so different from anything I've read. And the characters, especially the two main characters, the priest and the indigenous friend, I just loved it. So yeah, it's not, I know that not many people will, love this particular book when it comes to Edric, but for me, it was just fantastic. Anyway, I'm babbling on. Question number 2. A great author who is a one-hit wonder. Yes, Mary Shelley. Frankenstein, which was published in 1888. And I picked this because this is what, if I say the name Mary Shelley, you say Frankenstein. Nothing wrong with that. It's a fabulous book about a creature created by Victor Frankenstein, from a corpse, and all that it means. But this was not her only book. She was a very, a prolific and a successful writer in her time, so the 19th century. She published short stories, The Dream, The Pilgrims, I loved. She also published historical fiction. The book is called Valperga, about a Toscan prince. I mean, she was a well-known, established, successful author. And as often happens, especially with women or people of color, but once they die, I mean, Mary Shelley is lucky that she is remembered at all as a one-time wonder at least, but she wasn't. So yeah, this is not really the answer to the question, but I thought I needed to get that off my chest. Anyway, number 3, a great author who's had a flop or two. I think authors, especially authors who are prolific, who write more than 2 or 3 books in their lifetime, there have to be duds. I mean, Louisa Edric, there were books that I just thought were not as good as others. But I'm going with one of my favorite authors, Ursula Le Guin, and the novel Malafrena, which is kind of historical fiction. It's one of her first books, and it didn't get published. And then much, much later, she revised it, and it got published once she was a really established sci-fi author. But it goes to show that, you know, being a writer is also a craft. And first of all, when you start, like she did, you might not be as good as you will be when you write on. I mean, there are writers who write a book, you know, Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird. But she only wrote, speaking of one-hit wonder, she only wrote this one, published during her lifetime. But most authors, hopefully, will get better over time. But even though there is sometimes you just write something that isn't that good, so that's okay. You know, and Le Guin is a fantastic author, and I'm making my way through Le Guin's work with Adam, as you know, from Memento Mori, and we enjoyed Malafrena as her to see her journey towards the writer she will become, but it's not a very good book. No, unfortunately. Anyway, number 4, a great author you read when you were young. When I was young, I read a lot of French authors for some reason. I don't know. I was fascinated by France, by Paris, philosophy, Simone de Beauvoir, you know. So I read a lot of French authors, François Sagan, Simone de Beauvoir, but one that I still have, these German translation, these tiny little books that you used to have, the you know, paperbacks at that time tend to be small. It's like 100 and something pages. This is 135 pages, and the author is, of course, you already seen it, Colette. And one of the books, I mean, there are plenty here, but one of the books that I think is still capturing me today, and I don't have a copy, unfortunately, is Chéri, which was published, I think, in 1910, if I remember correctly, 1920. I'm just looking that up. And it's about this young man, Fred, who has an affair with this older woman. He's in his 20s, and she is almost 50, Leah. And his name is Fred Ballou, but he's called Chéri. And it's, you know, Leah is making her money as a courtesan, as a very well established in the society, and she is asked to take care of Chéri in order to, you know, sort of coming of age, to help him come of age. And it's a very tender story, but also the political background plays into it. So yeah, I still very much like this one. Anyway, number 5, a great author whose works are considered classic. Well, an author that I really love, that is considered a classic now, or her work is considered classic, is Edith Wharton. And especially I love the three novels of New York. The House of Mirth and The Age of Innocence are my two favorites from this trilogy. I think they are sublime. If you follow my channel for a long time, you have heard me rave about Edith Wharton, because I think she was one of the first authors. And isn't this a beautiful collection? Kim would love it because it has deckled edges and it has the French flaps. So I'm not a fan of deckled edges, but this book is still beautiful. Anyway, Edith Wharton was one of the first authors, and it was The Age of Innocence that I read in English, where I was just blown away by the language, by the way she writes, by her writing style. And it doesn't mean that everybody will love her writing style, but for me, it was really an epiphany, how you can just revel in the writing style of an author. So that was Edith Wharton for me, and still is, by the way. Number 6, a great author with a cutting-edge novel. I'm going for Octavia Butler, who is a great author. And this sci-fi novel, Dawn, which is the first one in Lilith's Brood, is cutting edge. The encounter between the human species and alien species in a really different way. And it's a parable about racism, and especially the theme that you would collaborate with your oppressor, and whether you should do it, and what the benefits of that are, and what it means. Fantastic. It's set in the future. The human race is almost extinct, but a couple of them are saved by this alien race, and they will be put down back to Earth that has recovered, but there is a catch to that. Fantastic. I think it's the best one in the trilogy. The others are good too, but Dawn, the first one, is just absolutely fantastic. Number 7, a great author whose work you consider impactful. Well, I'm going with impactful for me, because I don't think books change the world. I mean, there are certainly important books that you had about certain themes, fiction, also fiction sometimes. But I don't want to go down that road, so I'm just going to pick an author that was impactful and is impactful for me, and that is Susan Sontag. She was just brilliant, and she taught me what it can mean to be an author, even though I know I will never be like her, I mean, on the same level. But this idea of the intellectual that is interested in the world and looks at the world and does something with it, her inventiveness, her creativeness. And I'm just showing one book that is As Consciousness is Harnessed to Flesh. You can see all the marks. It's one of her diaries. It's the diaries from 1964 to 1980. Yeah, she is one of those authors who really made me aware of what literature can do to the reader, the impact, and also nonfiction, her work about photography, her work about illness, her work about AIDS, her work about camp, the how you can shift your view as an individual reader. You read a book and you look this way, and once you've finished, you feel that you have shifted, and that's such a fantastic experience. And Susan Sontag is one of the people who does that for me, and I admire her greatly, even though I think she was not easy to deal with. She was quite a character, but that's okay. Anyway, a great author of nonfiction. I could name Susan Sontag as a great author of nonfiction, especially when it comes to, like I said, photography or illness. But I'm going for Angela Davis. Her book, Women, Race, Class. First of all, she as a person is fantastic, admirable. The way she thinks, but also her activism. And this book is in 1970s, I think. Let me just check. Sorry. No, 81. About what we now call intersectionality. So feminism, racism, classism. These three categories, gender, race, class, how they interact. I think this book is brilliant. I really like her, how can I put that? She is in your face. She's one of those authors that I feel is completely not afraid to say whatever she feels is true. And I admire that greatly because I'm a people pleaser. So I always struggle with, telling uncomfortable truth. She is not. I wish I could be the way she is. Yeah, I think she is absolutely fantastic. Anyway, enough of the raving. Number 9. A great author that you don't enjoy reading. Arundhati Roy, The God of Small Things, published in 1997, and I think it's one won the Booker, and the next book took a long time, 20 years, so it's not that she has a huge body of work that I could explore, but I read this and the next one. It just doesn't work for me. I can see why people love it, and it doesn't work for me. It's a sprawling, multi-generational story set in India with 2 twins at the center. It doesn't. The writing style doesn't work for me. The story doesn't engage me. It engages me theoretically when somebody tells me what the story is about. I think, oh yes. It just doesn't work. Yeah. And the last question is number 10, a great author you have reread or want to reread soon. And I raved about her in a previous video, not last Sunday, but the Sunday before, about fabulous female characters, Carol Shields' Stone Diaries. And another book that I absolutely love is this one, Unless. I think Carol Shields is a fantastic author. And this speaks to me. I read this with Adam. He liked it, but didn't love it as much as I did because it is about an author, Rita Winter. And that speaks to me because I'm a writer myself. I just feel Carol Shields has a way of storytelling that is unique and interesting. And this book about Rita Winter, a 44-year-old successful author of light summertime fiction. And then something happens with her daughter. She was happy, but then something happens with her daughter. It's also the satire of the publishing industry, how they treat authors, was just hilarious. I love this one. Anyway, I'm not going to tag anybody because I'm late to the party, but if you haven't done this yet and you make videos, please consider yourself tagged because it's really fantastic to talk about your favorite authors. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, leave me your comments and I'll see you soon in the next one.